I'm Dr. Leonard Scott, a practicing dentist for over 45 years, and I am excited about my new book, The Ultimate Boost from Within, 31 Days to Health, Wealth, Wholeness, and Happiness. This book has the potential to help many people live a healthier life. How do you feel when you look in the mirror? Do you get more winded than you know you really should? The little things bother you more? Is fear keeping you back from being the person that you know you ought to be? Friend, if you answered yes to any of these questions, you need this book, The Ultimate Boost from Within, 31 Days to Health, Wellness, Wholeness, and Happiness. This book offers practical, easy-to-use strategies that will put more life in your living and more living in your life.
Well, bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. We're here for another Worship and Wellness Wednesday, and God is good. God has been good. And just think about what He's done for us, especially at Calvary. Sing an old song that says, Jesus, keep me near the cross. There's a precious fountain, free to all, a healing stream flows from Calvary's mountain. In the cross, in the cross, be my glory ever, till my raptured soul shall find rest beyond the river. In the cross I'll watch and wait, hoping, trusting ever, till I reach that golden strand, just beyond the river. In the cross, in the cross, be my glory ever, till my raptured soul shall find rest beyond the river. In the cross, in the cross, in the cross, be my glory ever, till my raptured soul shall find rest beyond the river, rest beyond the river, rest beyond the river. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah,
Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Thank you, Lord.
What a mighty God we serve.
Jesus,
What a mighty God we serve.
hallelujah.
Angels bow
Yes,
before
Lord.
Him.
Thank you, Jesus.
Heaven and earth adore Him. What a mighty
Glory,
God we
hallelujah.
serve.
Thank you, Father.
What a mighty God we serve. What a mighty God we serve. Angels bow before him. Heaven and earth adore him. What a mighty God we serve. What a mighty God we serve. What a mighty God we serve. Angels bow before him. Heaven and earth adore him. What a mighty God we serve. Jesus is the God. Jesus is the God we serve. Jesus is the God we serve. Angels bow before heaven and earth adore. What a mighty God we serve. What a mighty God we serve. What a mighty God we serve. Angels bow before him. Heaven and earth adore. What a mighty God we serve. What a mighty God we serve. What a mighty God we serve. Angels bow before him. Heaven and earth, angels bow before heaven and earth, angels bow before heaven and earth, angels bow before heaven and earth, what a mighty God we serve. He's mighty,
Hallelujah.
he's mighty, he's almighty. All powerful, omnipotent God. Glory. Come on, Bishop Brand Salon.
From the overboard. From the overboard. From the overboard.
Hi, I'm Leonard Scott from Rock Community Church, the friendly church, and I want to personally invite you to Rock Community Church this Sunday at 10 a.m. and this Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time via live stream. Every Sunday at Rock Community Church, there's an inviting, upbeat atmosphere, an awesome praise and worship service, and an encouraging message to get you through the week. So maybe you've been looking for a church, or maybe not. Either way, we'd love to see you at Rock Community Church this coming Sunday and Tuesday. So come explore faith and meet some great people in the process, and I can't wait to see you at Rock Community Church this Sunday and Tuesday.
Hey kids, praise the Lord!
Gospel Kids presents an animated sing-along series of classic songs like At the Cross and funky hip-hop style spiritual tracks like I'm a Soldier in the Army of the Lord. This animated playlist will not only entertain the kids, but also the entire family in a faith-filled activity for all ages. Enjoy some old school stomp clap gospel and island vibes while learning about the gospel of Jesus Christ. Go to YouTube now and check out the Gospel Kids Presents playlist on Ty Scott TV.
Welcome to this edition of Worship and Wellness Wednesday. We're glad that you've joined us today, and we want to also make you aware of our book that's available, and also the Ultimate Boost from Within, 31 Days to Health, Wealth, Wholeness, and Happiness, and also our new single that's out along with the late, great Bishop Rance Allen. And you just stream it or go download it, but it'll bless your soul. Well, I tell you, we have a very distinguished guest with us today, and he's a pioneer in and syndication, radio syndication for urban music. I've been doing this thing almost as many years as I am old. That ain't right, but but he has been over 40 years, has been disseminating the gospel or disseminating music through many, many radio stations all over the nation and even over the world. And so I want to welcome to the program again the Reverend Walter Shaw, better known as Walt Baby Love.
Thank you, Dr. Scott. It's great to be with you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I tell you, I just, when we talk, it's just like, I don't know, I learned so much because you got such great history, man. I tell you, you've been through a lot. You served in the, I think you were a paratrooper in the airborne and just done a lot of things, man. Been on radio all those years. Some of the people, I mean, the people that you've met during your time in radio, it's like a who's who of entertainment, and I just love sitting and listening to you, man.
Thank you. We're trying to get it into another book here. We authored one book called The Gospel According to Reverend Walt Baby Love, published by Simon & Schuster. We're working on number 2. They want me to do my autobiography, and I sort of rejected that, but I really want to do it. So I think God has finally given me enough courage and nerve to do it. In other words, tell about the good stuff and about the bad stuff, Yeah. And they keep telling me you can talk about, whatever you want, but in my head, when they first said autobiography, I thought about, wow, what about the things that went wrong? And when I wasn't serving the Lord, I don't even want to talk about it. But maybe it's good because I can tell somebody like, hey, don't make the same mistake I made, and God will let you bounce back.
Right. People need to hear it. They need to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Of course, now, you don't have to tell everything. You don't have to tell everything.
Right, that's right. Somebody told me that. You don't have to say everything. Just enough. Pick out the good, bad stuff.
Yeah.
That's
stuff
funny.
Stuff that's going to help people. Because some of the stuff we did, we tell it ain't going to help nobody anyway. So.
That's absolutely right.
Well, listen,
you did mention, so I'm going to let you ask me questions, but you did mention something that I think I'd like to expound on just a little bit, which is you said, I've been in the business a long time and I've met a lot of people, and it's like a list of who's who. And that's true. It's really, really true. I mean, people I never thought I'd meet, before I ever got in the industry, because I never knew I wanted to be in the industry. I thought I wanted to be a social worker. And, I went into the military, 18, to the United States Army, volunteered to go airborne. So I was a paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne Division, and served in Southeast Asia, in Thailand. Whoa. But before all of that, when I finally did 7 years in the military and all that stuff, I got a staff sergeant E6. But the point is, when I decided to get into radio, I had no idea I'd meet people like James Brown, the Temptations, Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, some of my favorites, Mary Wells, because I used to like her song, My Girl. I mean, when I was a teenager, that was my song.
That was my guy.
Yeah, my guy. I guess that was going, but to me, she was my girl.
Right.
And, but people like that. And then later, because basically black radio, R&B radio rejected me, because of the way I speak, no dialect, so on and so forth. And they used to actually say mean things like, well, you're not black. You don't talk like we talk. Well, I come from Western Pennsylvania. I talk like my family talks. I talk like my neighbors, who were Polish and Yugoslavian and Czechoslovakian and Russian and Italian and Irish Catholics, and the only time I got to really see black people was when I was at church, in a small community. It's true. And people used to come from Pittsburgh out to our little rural community, to our church, because our pastor was so popular. And the church grew. Mm-hmm. So unless we went to Pittsburgh, we weren't around, say, a number of black people, but most of the black people in the little rural community I was from, were college educated people. Others, family members, worked in a steel mill or a coal mine, but they had some education, and so they spoke differently with that what I call Western Pennsylvania twang. And I never picked it up because my great grandmother raised me, and she was a school teacher and an English teacher. So she said, you can't speak like that. Speak, quote, the King's English. Last point, and she said, it'll take you places. Never knowing I wanted to be in the broadcast industry, and exactly what she said, what she prophesied, without even saying she was prophesying, turned out to be true. So I'll shut up. You ask me whatever questions you want.
Oh man, I tell you what, we can just go with that flow. I tell you, I was enjoying everything you said, but let's go back. You talked about James Brown at first.
Yeah,
Met James Brown.
Mr. Brown.
Tell us a little something about the soul man number one.
Soul brother number one.
Yeah.
For me, it was, I got out of the military at the end of 1967. I was in 6 years, 11 months on active duty. And anyway, my first job was in Houston, Texas at KYOK, a black radio station that decided to give me a job, but only because the gentleman in charge, Mr. Richard Oppenheimer, who passed away just a year ago, Mr. Oppenheimer heard some tapes of me, just homemade tapes, right? I didn't even know what I was doing. I just read. I like read from a newspaper and all that stuff. And he kept saying to me, he called me and he said, well, when can you do this? I said, well, a year and a half. I still got a year and a half to go on my enlistment because I had re-enlisted. Long story short, I got to Houston and they said to me, James Brown's going to be coming to town in about 6 months. And I said, really? They said, yeah, to do a concert. Said, and whenever he comes to town, he meets with all the local radio personalities, the disc jockeys, as they called them at the time.
Right.
But the black ones. And in Houston at that time, there were 2 black radio stations, KYOK and KCOH. All right. And if you saw that movie about Ray Charles, he talked about KCOH and the individuals who were there that helped his career. Well, anyway, I was at KYOK, the other station, which was more popular, meaning rating-wise. Right. So anyway, the program director said, so be ready when Mr. Brown comes to town. You're going to get to meet him. I said, really? He said, yeah. I said, we all go backstage and meet him. And I said, oh, okay. So I kept thinking about, wow, I'm going to meet James Brown one day. So the long story short happened was they came to town and the program director, Rick Roberts, God bless his soul, gone home to be with the Lord now. He said, wear your best clothes, man, and everything, and we'll tell you what to do. So that night, we're at the Houston Music Theater, which was the largest facility at that time for concerts in 1968. And so we went backstage, and there was a line of disc jockeys from the other station and our station, everybody who was on the radio. And they said, now, when a man comes out and calls your name, you go in the door and you'll meet Mr. Brown, and whatever you do, call him Mr. Brown. I said, okay, no problem. I'll be an old military guy, I can follow the rules.
Right.
Man, got in there and he had his hairdresser and stuff going on and his valet and all. I had never seen show business, I was in the infantry and I grew up on a farm. So anyway, I'm looking at this and I'm like, wow, this is interesting. And he said, and at the time they had given me a strange name, okay? Charlie Brown on the radio, which I
Seriously?
hated. Yeah, they gave me a name, man. I hated it. So I rebelled naturally like I would, right? I used to call myself, this is Walt Shaw, you're Charlie Brown. So the management didn't like it, but they let me get away with it because all of a sudden my popularity took off. So anyway, he said, well, Charlie, I've been listening to you, son. He said, let me shake your hand. I said, yes, sir, Mr. Brown. He shook my hand. He said, I've been listening to you. We've been in town about 2 days. He said, you really been playing my song? I said, yes, sir. I said, it's on the playlist there, and I really like it. He said, well, son, he said, you got a good future. He said, I'll tell you what you do. He said, you stay out of trouble. He said, listen to what Mr. Roberts is telling you and Brother George Nelson. You do what they tell you to do, and you'll have a good career in this business. I said, yes, sir. He said, well, here's a little something I want to give you. He said, here's an envelope for you. He said, because later on, you're going to get up on stage. And when you get up on stage, you'll have a chance to speak to the audience. And you'll have a chance to mention me. He said, so I want you to take this envelope. And he said, you have a good time and take care of yourself. I said, yes, sir. And I shook hands. And I stepped over there, and there was a man sitting there with a table. Well, I lied. You go outside of his dressing room. Then there was a man sitting at a table. And the man said, I want you to sign right here. And you have that envelope Mr. Brown gave you. And we're paying you to MC this concert.
Really?
So that nobody can say that you're taking payola under the table. And there's a W-2 in there for your taxes. And we thank you very much for your performance when you get up on stage. I said, yes, sir. And I signed and took my little envelope. I'm not going to say how much was in it. Right? And there was a W-2. And I was like, wow, look at this. Right? And they said, yeah, man, you know, and the longer you're here, every time Mr. Brown comes, the more years you're here, the more your services will be paid for you emceeing the concert or you know, participating in emceeing.
Interesting.
Because each person was an actual MC.
Interesting.
Because he had other acts with him.
Right.
Yeah. So that was my first meeting with James Brown. Then he offered me a job. Really, I swear, a year later, he offered me a job. He was, you know, he bought radio stations, if you recall, down in Augusta, Georgia, and all that. And
Right.
he tried to get me to go to work for him because I was like blowing up. And I'll never forget, my boss said to me, he said, man, you know, it's an honor to work for James Brown, but you might ought to think about it. I didn't know what he meant by that. Right. So the bottom line was I decided to say, no, thank you, sir. I'd rather just stay here in Houston. It's all, but I'm gonna pay you more. I'm you know, more than doubling your salary. No, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. So I stayed still, and as you know, by the time I was there 2 years in Houston, the top 40 radio station, KILT, the #1 radio station in town, but never had a black talent of any sort or any news people or anybody else black on their staff. For Lynn Broadcasting Corporation, I was hired. Then program director, Mr. Bill Young, and vice president, general manager, Mr. Dickie Rosenfeld, hired me. They said, we'll see your ratings. You're really competing with us. And that has not happened from somebody on a black, quote, radio station playing all R&B and blues and that kind of stuff. We want to hire you. And the rest is history.
Wow.
I went there and then later to Canada, as you know, and then to New York City on top 40 radio. That's what I meant, how black radio really just, you know, turned their backs basically on me. And that's the beautiful thing, that later on in syndication, because of the success God gave me in top 40 radio and people hearing me, meaning not just whites and Latinos and Asians and Native Americans, but black folks saying, wow, man, you know, he's pretty good. We like him. Then the name, you know, the whole name change thing happened in Houston at KILT to use my own name, basically, because there was another guy on the radio station whose last name was Shaw. So they said, you can't have two Shaws. You got to be somebody else. And I said, I want to be Walt Love. But then the Walt Baby Love started happening.
Wow.
So it's a beautiful story, man. God knows what he's doing.
Tell me, how did the gospel come into it? Gospel music.
When I got into syndicate, I mean, I always liked it as a kid. And back home, my grandmother, I was never allowed to listen to the local radio station, WAMO, WAMO in Pittsburgh, playing the R&B music. But early in the morning, they played gospel. So my grandmother had it on and I was allowed to listen to that. And then as I got older, she began letting me listen in the afternoons. But anyway, I always liked gospel music, but I didn't know anything about it. And when I got into syndication, I was doing my show, that Countdown, that became extremely successful, and ended in 2014 after 29 years, making it the longest running black syndicated show in history.
Wow.
And one day I was telling my staff at Westwood One Radio Network at that time, I said, I got this feeling, man. I heard this gospel song and I want to play it. So my producer said, well, why don't you do it? And I said, well, you sure it's not going to be a problem? They said, well, man, the company has given you free reign to do what you want. You started the countdown. It was your idea. You partnered with them. Corporate, for whatever you do, they're going to let you do. And if you feel like, I said, yeah, man, my spirit feels like I need something about Jesus right now. Some things weren't going right in my life. And I said, I want to play this song. They said, what's the name of it? And right now, I can't even remember what it was, but I told them the name of the artist and all that. So they said, we'll find it. I said, okay. So we continued to do the countdown. Then we got this, but they said, well, where do you want to put it? I said, let's put it here in the second hour. And so I began to just tell the audience, like, well, hey, I'm having a tough time. I'm sure maybe you're having a tough time too. Well, we try to have a good time on the countdown. I said, but I go to church. I believe in God. I pray about a lot of things. And I want to share this song with you. And I said, I want you to let me know what you think of the song later. Now, remember, at that time, there was no internet, none of that. So for people to tell us, they had to call our toll-free number or write a letter or card or something to us.
Right.
We got overwhelmed with phone calls.
Wow.
And at the same time, I was the editor of Radio and Records newspaper at the time for the urban music and radio department. That's like the terminology for the black side of radio and music.
Right.
And so I'm doing that, and I get phone calls from program directors, like I mentioned to you one time, and they're saying to me, I'm thinking, they're going to get angry with me because I'm on their station and I'm playing a gospel song in the middle of the R&B top 30. And they're like, man, what are you doing? Why did you do that? And I told them, and I said, well, what's the problem? Is there a problem? You're mad about this? I won't do it again. No. You can do whatever you want. Here's why we're asking. I said, why? They said, because, like, pick the city. We got 10 phone calls about that song. People wanting to know what's the name of the artist. And we told them, no, you couldn't have heard it on our station. We don't do that until Sunday. They said, no, we heard it on Saturday, and it was Walt Baby Love who did it. And then I got calls from all over America. From programmers. And so I told them the name of the song and the artist. And they said, well, man, why don't you start a second show? I said, I said, it's tough keeping you guys doing business with us with our R&B show. How can I expect you or think you're going to give up 2 or 3 hours to let me do gospel? Well, because of your ratings, we'll gladly do it. We'll carry you on Saturday with your R&B show. We'll carry you on Sunday with your gospel show.
Wow.
So I said, okay. So I started thinking about it, praying about it. Then I said, nah, I need to keep what I got going very successful. I'm just going to go to church and I'm going to keep tithing. I'm going to keep the pastor ask for some extra money to help people, that are less fortunate. I'm going to do all of that. But I'm not getting involved with this gospel thing because I've heard all kind of stories. I don't want people bothered. Right? And then one of my fathers in the ministry, I have two, Prophet L.K. Johnson in Chicago, which I'm not from Chicago, but in my previous marriage, I met this gentleman. He was her pastor, and he took a liking to me. And then my other father in the ministry is Reverend Dr. Cecil Chip Murray here at First AME Church, Los Angeles, who since has retired. And Prophet Johnson said to me, he said, Walt, why don't you start another program? I said, no, sir, I don't think I should do that. He said, but I think you should. He said, you're telling me these people called you about what you did. He said, can't you see God is opening the door? I said, but I said, the corporation, they don't want to hear that. You know what I'm saying? I heard one gospel program. I think I mentioned this to you. And I can't remember the name of it, but it was back then, okay, in 1981. And it was down in Nashville, Tennessee. And it was horrible. I don't know what the name, but it was horrible. When I say it was horrible because when I heard it, not here in LA, I was like out visiting or something, another state. The person didn't speak very well. The person was very old fashioned. The person wasn't contemporary enough to reach what I felt black people wanted to hear, black people like me, okay? And I grew up in the church, and I'm thinking, man, you're doing a disservice for our people, but you're supposed to be representing God with this music. I think it could be better. So having Prophet Johnson tell me that, then I said, well, maybe we should try this. So I started messing around in a production studio with my staff. I'd be after hours messing around with it, not knowing that I was going to do this. And then I went to the chairman of the board of the company and I said, hey, I'd like to do this. He said, well, I love it. So anything you want to do, we'll want to do with you. Because your contract says, we have first right of refusal to anything in addition that you create in your mind, besides what we're already partnered with you with the countdown. I said, yes, sir. He said, but the problem is, I'm not running the company like I used to. I brought in a president to run the company from ABC Radio Network. He said, now, Walt, you know the business. If they don't believe in it, they're not going to get out there and sell it. Meaning they're not going to get affiliates to be on more stations to reach more people. 2, they're not going to sell advertising to make it profitable. And then you're going to need another staff to work with you doing that. Or if you want your regular staff, you're going to have to pay them double. I said, well, I want my regular people. He said, why don't you talk to them about it? Then I'll step in if I need to his credit. So when I told the new president about this, if somebody new that, didn't think that much of me other than, wow, he's successful, but he's black. So let's be serious about this part right here. With all that's going on right now in 2021, I want to say this because it's really true. That man, I have to say his name, but that man, as far as he was concerned, I was just another Negro. Okay? Who are you to tell me what you want to do? I'm the president. You're just this talent, but yeah, you got a deal that nobody else has. And so I told him, I said, guess what? I'm going to do it. So if you don't want to do it, no problem. I came to you first. I'm going to go find somebody else. So before that happened, I just called a little tiny syndicated company in Boston named Super Radio Networks. I heard, not that company, but running their syndication division had a good reputation with most black folks in the radio business and the music business. Long story short, I called him. I couldn't get him. I left a message. The guy called me back the next day. And he was like, wow, what do you want? I've always wanted to meet you, And he's like, I can't believe you even called me. I said, yeah, I called you because I want to talk to you about something. I said, what? And I told him. He said, you mean you'd like us to syndicate your gospel program? Yeah. Well, what about the bigger company you're with? I said, they don't want to do it. Just your name says we want to do business with you. I said, are you serious? They said, yeah. So I told them what I wanted to do. They didn't know anything about gospel. All they knew was a little bit of hip hop, a little bit of R&B, some stuff like that. And long story short, I hired them to be my representative, not partner, just distribution. And did that for 5 years with them. And then graduated to a larger company called Dow Global Communication at that time that later was sold to Cumulus Broadcasting. But that's how it really took off. I mean, because at the height of our gospel program, I mean, we were reaching a whole lot of folks. Whole lot of folks. We still do pretty good.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Tell me, do you have any, I know you remember like Oh Happy Day back in the day.
Yeah, the Edwin Hawkins singers.
Yeah. So did you, I know you helped probably promote it, but did you help break any of the gospel recordings?
Not like that, because I wasn't in the gospel business at that time. Because if I'm not mistaken, Oh Happy Day in my head, it seems like it happened in the early 70s, 80s or something like that.
Really, yeah, late 60s. Late 60s, early 70s, yeah.
I was still just getting out of the Army.
Okay.
So I heard it, but I don't have anything to do with that. But I can tell you a song that I did, but it wasn't gospel. get this, R&B, Mercury Records. I got a gold record right over here I could show you. Only the Strong Survive, Jerry Butler.
Oh,
When I
wow.
was on KYOK, because there was all kinds of different things. And Mr. Oppenheimer decided, he says, "You're the new guy." He said, "You haven't been around the business. I see you. I can trust you. I'm gonna make you the music director." Well, I didn't really know. I didn't really know what was going on at that time. I didn't know about the terminology of payola, money under the table, drugs under the table, women under the tables, cars under the table, plane tickets under all that crap. So I didn't know anything about any of this. So anyway, he put me in charge, and so people would come to see me promoting their records, and I'd say, "Yeah, that's horrible. No, that's good. Give us that." Oh man, they didn't like me, So it's kind of like, "Hey man, I'm an ex-sergeant, so I'm not afraid of you people. So y'all coming in here trying to bully somebody and bogart somebody and I won't even go into all of it, but you kind of know the story. I've guns pulled on me over the years. And I've disarmed a few people and had them arrested. It was crazy just trying to be honest. That's what I'm saying. But anyway, I heard this record called Only the Strong Survive. And there was this girl I knew as a single guy then, right? I was in my 20s, so at 24. And she didn't want to continue dating me or whatever, and I felt really bad about it. And here I was in Houston, Texas, not home in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, had done great in the military for 7 years. And so anyway, I just had a broken heart, and I liked that song. And if you remember some of the lyrics, it says, "Only the strong survive." Da-da-da. And then it says, a mother talking to her son. She said, "Son," she says, "be aware." She says, "Only the strong survive. You'll meet somebody else." And so I took that to heart and started playing it. Now that was back in the day when the radio personality could actually pick songs they wanted to play or play them over. Like we used to call it, "It sounds so nice, we'll play it twice." We could play it a second time. So all of a sudden this song became huge in Houston. Mercury Records sent one of their vice presidents to meet me, offered me all kind of stuff that I didn't want. I said, "I just want to meet Jerry Butler." Right? So Jerry Butler was coming to town to do a concert at the Houston Music Theater. So they saw to it I met Jerry Butler and went out to dinner with him and that kind of stuff. And that started my friendship with Jerry Butler. And then later he had, Moody Woman and all those kind of songs came later. But my first song, breaking a song, meaning bringing popularity to it nationwide, but first in my little city. And Houston wasn't as big as it is today. And so that got me a reputation of, man, this guy knows music. And if he plays your music, something's going to happen.
Something's going to happen. So you didn't deal with payola the same way as a lot of the other.
No, some of our brothers, but to be fair, others that were whites and Latinos and Asians and Native Americans and those positions at that time, many of them got mixed up in problems and troubles. You can look all that up. I'm sure it's on YouTube and every place else. And there were huge investigations, as you know, over the years, more than one time. Right. And I'm just thankful that my grandmother and grandfather, they gave me some morals and some ethics and some standards. And so it wasn't about money for me. It was about an opportunity. And if I could prove myself, and follow what I'm saying, if I could prove myself in doing this radio thing with no formal training, just think what would happen. My mother said to me, she said, "Walter," she said, "honey," she said, "I know you're trying something different. And I know, you started going to college and you dropped out and this and that." She said, "Just remember this." I said, "What's that, Mom?" She said, "I want you to reach for the stars at whatever you do, no matter what profession you're in or stay in the military." She said, "But if God doesn't give you the stars, he'll give you the moon." And that stuck with me. Yeah. And it stuck with me from the standpoint of saying, if I can prove myself on this black radio, then guess what? I can go to mainstream radio and make the kind of money the white guys make. And I can do it legitimately. I don't have to have you trying to have me take money under the table, get me in trouble that I don't pay taxes on, and I get in a bunch of trouble. It's easier
Right.
for me that if I can compete and I can win, somebody's going to pay me. And if you won't pay me, somebody else will pay me for my talents, just like someone gets paid to be a scientist,
Right.
or a medical doctor or a dentist like yourself, and a record company entrepreneur, things of that nature. That was in my head because I saw that with one of my grandfathers that owned nightclubs and other businesses back in the Pennsylvania area, Western Pennsylvania, and I saw that with my uncles and things like that did have higher education, and they were able to achieve and never have to do all these crazy things that I was seeing in the entertainment business. I mean, I had read about things, I had heard
Right.
about things, but when I saw it, Dr. Scott, oh my God, I
Struck home.
was like, whoa, okay, Wally, here's what you need to do. You need to, one, go back to your base in Western Pennsylvania from the standpoint of your ethics and your morals. Two, you need to go back to your time in the military because you're going to have to deal with this. Because some of these people you're dealing with, they're going to come at you with guns and knives and cocaine and women, all that garbage. And it was true. But hey, God protected me. But I had to go into that mode. Needless to say, it wasn't about, oh, please, oh, can I pray with you? No. I had to tell people, man, back up. Don't act like that with me. You got the wrong guy. Okay. Then as I went along and I achieved and God let me move up, then my reputation spread about a no nonsense person. Then those things didn't happen anymore. So
Right.
God protected me. So I didn't have to be forceful. I didn't have to punch people out and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, because most guys I met, I think you know this, that I met in the music business and the radio business, well, a lot of on the black side. Well, I might even say just in general, most of the people you met were just kind of like, let's just see if I can do the show business thing and get paid. But most of them weren't mean, evil, get in your face, I'll hurt you, I'll beat you up, I'll shoot you. But there was that element.
Oh yeah.
And that element existed with whites, with blacks, with Latinos, with Asians, with Native Americans, with males and females that thought they could intimidate you to do what they wanted to try to advance their own cause and get paid legally as well as illegally. That's what I saw. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what was happening.
It's history.
Quiet
You
as
know
it
what I
kept.
mean? And I'm
Some
shocked
of
that
it's
I'm
still
part of
happening.
that. Yeah, I'm shocked that I'm part of that history. I mean, I saw it. I lived it. I had to not only resist it, in many cases, I had to be violent about it. And I'm not ashamed to say that, but that's the truth. But that's part of, in my opinion, going back to ministry now, in God's protective arms around me, a fence of protection, build a fence all around me every day. That's God had a fence around me because of my mother and my grandmother and my two great grandmothers' prayers saying, we raised this boy to know how to take care of himself. The military taught him how to take care of himself. And now he can go out there in the world and whatever he faces, good, bad, or ugly, as you said earlier, he can make it. And boy, am I thankful. That's the truth.
Wow. Man, we only got a little bit of time left, but I want you to talk a little bit about the changes you've seen in music and music in general, but then
Gospel.
urban music, and then specifically gospel, right?
Okay, three things. I can say I don't think music today is as good as it used to be. I understand everything changes and advances, whether it's science, music, or whatever,
Right.
fashion, all of that. But just because it changes doesn't mean it's as good or better, in my opinion. And when it comes to the general market of radio and music, I don't think that we're getting, I don't think the best music to give to the world, to the public. But I think the public also hasn't asked for better. They're just accepting. Having said that, and I'm talking about whether it's top 40 or country or whatever you want to talk about. Then on the R&B side, urban as you called it, it's almost like we don't even have an R&B, rhythm and blues music anymore. And I'll just keep talking. That's my grandfather clock.
Okay.
But, but it's like we don't even have, in my opinion. I mean, in fact, I don't even know. I don't even know a group say that you could compare that even exists. Forget compare to like the Temptations, or the Four Tops, or even come forward, right? Boys to Men, or New Edition. Any of those that were like fun-loving, danceable, have fun with your music. It's like we don't even have that exist. Instead, we have hip hop. So I'll probably get criticized. I have been before. I'm not a big proponent of hip hop, but fine. It doesn't matter because they're successful at what they do.
Right.
But I like the early hip hop that they used to just call rap, right? And I play around with like LL Cool J, for example, one of my favorites. But when he had a song called Around the Way Girl, well, remember the story of the lyrics were a girl who lived in the neighborhood that he thought was pretty. And he called her the Around the Way Girl. She lived a few blocks away. You follow what I'm saying? But this is before they got to like in the 90s, the mid 90s or early 90s, mid 90s and on into 2000, where we had gangster rap, where we had all the profanity and the ignorance and so on and so forth. Because the early rap, go back to LL Cool J, Run DMC, and a bunch of those people, they were telling a story about where they grew up and how they felt about certain things. And I'm not saying all the other stuff is just horrible, but I am saying I don't think that that's exactly what we need as a society, not just black folks, all of us. And I dared say on my countdown years ago that I wouldn't play certain songs. And if those songs became number one, I should say I won't play it. And so I said, but I'll let my producer play it. So I would get up and walk away from the microphone, and my producer would sit down and say, well, here's the number one song in the country on the countdown. Walt will be back next week. And people thought I was crazy. But I'm trying to say is I didn't talk it, I walked it. I believed it. And then when we talk about gospel music quickly, I think we've lost a lot there too, in my personal opinion. There's some of the gospel music I hear today that I really like, I really enjoy. I mean, that's it. But I understand that they're taking some hip hop beats, some R&B beats, some jazz beats, and putting them into, say, what they want it to sound like. Because I don't mean to imply I think everything should be a hymn like back in the day or all the old quartet gospel. But I also think that fits today. And I'll make this point. Like right now, if you look at Media Base 24/7, the number one gospel song in the country is Byron Cage, I Can't Give Up, an old school choir gospel song that some people said, oh, that's not relevant in the black community. Really? Well, then how come it got so popular? Not just because Walt said so, or I played it first. And a lot of my affiliates weren't. But later, my affiliates started. And look what happened. But likewise, you got, say, another song by, name who you want. So I won't say any names so people won't criticize me. You know what I'm talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about. But, we need, I believe, groups like Commissioned that copied what the Temptations did, but gave it a Christian twist, right? With Fred Hammond, Marvin Sapp, and those kind of people. I don't know the names of all the other guys in Commission because I never met them. I played their music, but I never met them. I know Fred. I know Marvin Sapp. I know those people. I know, the Winans, Marvin Winans, and all of them when they were a group and playing their music as well as BB and CC. And but I think that some of the younger people, in my opinion, I think they should, incorporate some of those beats from other genres of the music. But I think they also, I should say, not just say to me because some of them criticized me for saying this. But everything, just because they throw in something that's slightly biblically based, that makes it okay? I don't think so.
Mm,
I'm saying that, forget as a broadcaster. I'm saying that as a consumer,
mm,
as a person who listens, that just likes music, all types of music. So if you're going to give me a gospel song, yeah, I want to hear the biblically based part of your lyrics, no problem. But then when it comes to the music, well, then what else is going to excite me about it? Either help me in my doldrums or help me in my joy to keep on celebrating God. I mean, that's,
mm.
once again, that's just my opinion. Some people think I'm crazy, but I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I'm probably a little outspoken, but that's the way it goes. You know,
That's good.
my grandmother and my mother did it. So what can I say?
Yeah, yeah. Man, we're coming down toward the end, but I would before you go, I would like for you to share. You know, you've got a lot of wisdom, a lot of knowledge, a lot of understanding, a lot of history. Uh, you're like a legend, a living legend in your realm. You know, in what you do. So, can you share with maybe some young people that want to go into well, not just radio, but I mean, because now it's so much different
Yeah,
than when you started, man. I mean, like there was no internet. I mean, today you can have a radio station that covers the world,
yeah,
in your home. It's like
yeah, that's
just
true.
because of technology.
True.
And can you share though um, some things that you can say, this is what helped me get through. I know you've already shared your upbringing,
Yeah,
your ethics, your morals, which all are very important. A lot of people don't realize it, but man, that is so important. But
yeah,
maybe some other things that you
yeah.
can share.
I'd say this: if no matter the profession that people want to get into, but if they wanted to get into this profession, still dealing with radio, whether it's internet radio or terrestrial radio, which is what we're finding is commercial radio. Internet still hasn't kicked off from the standpoint of major advertisers going there, except for podcasts. But what I was just trying to say is that I think you have to, one, be qualified at what it is you think you want to do, and find out how to compete with the people that you see doing it, the men and women that you see doing it. I think it's very important. I mentioned this to uh, Sydney, your nephew. I mentioned to him just the other day, we were having a conversation, and I was talking about, I think, the importance of knowing where you came from and where you think you want to go. And if you pick a profession, say like you with dentistry, find out who the best dentists are. Find out how dentistry first got started. Find out if you need to go to dentistry school. 9 times out of 10, you do. In this business, you don't have to maybe go to some school, but you have to be aware of who you're trying to compete with and how you think you can possibly do what they do just as well as they do it, or better, if you expect to succeed. So I think people have to, young people, know the history of what it is you're trying to get into, whatever profession it is. If it's law enforcement, for example, learn more about law enforcement from the beginning. Find out, what you want to know that'll help you not only get into the profession, but succeed in the profession to advance, so that maybe you can be one of the leaders and help make it better. And I think that's what young people today, I think, have to do. But so many of them want instantaneous gratification because of technology, I think, and because of our society, like go to Starbucks and get a coffee rather than get the grounds and just sifter and make your own coffee, like my granddad used to do. So everybody wants instantaneous gratification.
Right.
And that's great, except I think maybe if you understand what it takes to build it and to do it, then maybe you could not only compete, you could be a leader at whatever profession you choose. Anyway, that's what I think. And that's
Awesome.
what I tried to do in this business.
Yeah. Awesome words of wisdom. So finally, if you could just share with all of our viewers, listeners, where they can purchase your book, the name of your book, where they can purchase it, and also how they can follow you on your syndicated stations. People can now tune in around the world to whatever
Yeah,
station you're on the
yeah,
internet.
yeah. They
So
can go to tune in and find stations all over the world. For example, people can reach out to us different ways. You can call our toll-free number, which is what, 1-877-925-8568, or you can go to our social media platforms, like on Facebook. You search Walt Baby Love or Gospel Track Show. Tracks is spelled Traxx. And then for Instagram, it's gospel_tracks. And I think it's Twitter, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's at Gospel Tracks. And then let's see what else. Oh, you can always go to our website, waltbabylove.com. You can do that. And I think that's it. And the name of the book is The Gospel According to Reverend Walt Baby Love. It's about my walk with the Lord and what I feel God has done for me. As you know, I'm a cancer survivor. I'm a 24-year cancer survivor now. I live with one kidney, and I was given 5 months to live. And look what God has done. You can find the book.
how many years ago was that?
Mean the cancer situation?
When they gave you 5 years to live, right?
1996.
That's been a few years.
1996, coming up in October, it'll be 24 total years.
Right.
Or it'll be 25 years, excuse me, 25 years, because the Gospel Track Show is now 26 years old. In February, the third week of February, we started the 26th year of Gospel Tracks, making it the longest running Black gospel music program in the country. And the book, you can find it at Barnes & Noble. And if they tell you it's out of print, you can tell them, like, we'll print one, and they'll do it.
Okay.
You may have to pay a little extra like that. But that's mainly, and Amazon.com. That's how.
All right.
It's kind of an interesting, and just quickly, you'll see some pictures in the book if you decide to get the book. You'll find some pictures of me with when I was working for NBC in New York. Stevie Wonder. NBC had never had someone like Stevie Wonder come into their studios and do a live broadcast with one of their personalities. And I had the privilege of telling my boss, "Oh, I'm friends with Steve. He teaches my kid how to play bass guitar." Right? He's my oldest son, Walter. And they said, "Can you do that?" I said, "Yeah, I can do that." So we had Stevie Wonder and people of that nature. And then early on, I think I told you another time, just quickly, when I worked for WOR-FM, the first station I worked for in New York City, I had the privilege of interviewing Elton John, that they now call Sir Elton John. And at that time, nobody knew who Elton John was. But boy, I'll tell you, a few years later, I got a kick out of, for me, his greatest song for me was some Benny and the Jets. And Benny and the Jets, if you remember that song, started out of Cleveland, Ohio. A young black disc jockey in Cleveland that was the program director started playing that song, and how black people got into dancing to that song before Top 40 radio even recognized its importance and success.
Interesting.
That's a true story.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was at Radio and Records newspaper at that particular time, and I wrote about it. And I wrote about the program director, who was the guy who started playing that song. He broke that song. And because it became so popular on black radio, white stations started playing it later. See, that's the kind of history that most black people don't even pay any attention. But I understand they're not in this business, so they don't care. They're not interested.
Right. True.
But it's some credit that people who look like us should get about starting trends in this nation. And I read a story just quickly in the New York Times just yesterday about the whole trend about talking about cancel, what do they call it? Culture. You know, talking about canceling something or someone out. Neil Rogers wrote the first song about canceling out a woman, a girl that he was dating that sort of turned her back on him. And black people picked it up. Now white people talk about cancel culture, right? With the with the Republicans and the Democrats and all this stuff. And they were talking about, and the woke, WOKE, right? How many times did we hear the black preacher years ago, for me in the 60s growing up, right, the 50s, but y'all better wake up about voting. Y'all better wake up about wanting to succeed at this job. So you're going to go to a historically black college or university, but you need to get an education. Woke. Now, what do you hear white folks talking about? Woke culture. Wow. I mean, to me, these are the kinds of things, Bishop, that I think some of us in radio today that are doing urban type stuff that we need to mention instead of some of the foolishness that I hear. When I hear, and I won't even say their names, but you know who they are, and they get on the radio and they're telling black folks, like, on a morning show, like, well, we got a question for you. Have you cheated with your best friend's husband?
Wow.
Why do we as a culture want to hear that? I understand it exists. No problem. Okay. Right. Adultery. No problem. But is that funny? When we have so many black children that don't have fathers in their lives, is that funny? I don't think that's funny. That's not humorous to me. But I understand I'm getting older, and I don't think it's my age, because I'm usually pretty open-minded about stuff, or my career wouldn't have lasted like 53 years. You know what I'm saying? In syndication, 40 of those years. I mean, that's crazy.
It's called gossip.
Yeah, but I want more for our people. You know what I'm saying? I want more for us as a people, as a culture.
Yeah, we don't need gossip.
I'm trying not to break down, man, but I'm giving you my heart.
Yes.
I'm giving you my heart. I can't do it by myself.
Right.
But I get frustrated about things like that, because I wish if I had more power, if I had more influence in the world of communications, meaning radio, television, internet, print media, I would try to get people that I know that think like that. Like Denzel Washington, for the sake of argument. I never met the man in my life, but I'd love to. I've watched things that he had to say about college graduation to young black people graduating from college. You understand what I'm saying? And Viola Davis. I mean, I never met those people, but I met Billy D. Williams, and him and I had a conversation like this years ago, and he was very kind. He was very nice to talk to. But I've met some others, and it's kind of like they just want a street life, and God bless them. God bless them. But I know I'm going to try to do, and I don't mean to imply like I'm perfect. I'm not. I've screwed up, but I don't drink.
You're doing a whole lot of good for a whole lot of people, and you're helping a lot of people. And even you didn't mention your foundation. I mean, you're doing so much good. And man, I tell you, we're out of time. But I could just go on talking to you about listening to you.
Well, maybe you let me come back again someday.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do that. But we're gonna have to sign off. We're a couple of minutes past. Hopefully they don't fire us. But listen, thanks so much for being with us.
Yes, sir.
Walt Baby Love, a legend in our time in urban radio, in syndicated radio. And we thank you all, the audience, for sticking with us today on this Worship and Wellness Wednesday. And Lord willing, we'll be back again next Wednesday. And we bid you Godspeed in Jesus' name. Amen.
Hey, kids, praise the Lord.
Gospel Kids presents an animated sing-along series of classic songs like At the Cross and funky hip-hop style spiritual tracks like I'm a Soldier in the Army of the Lord. This animated playlist will not only entertain the kids, but also the entire family in a faith-filled activity for all ages. Enjoy some old school stomp clap gospel and island vibes while learning about the gospel of Jesus Christ. Go to YouTube now and check out the Gospel Kids Presents playlist on Ty Scott TV.